have one table, so we're going to do it at the first sentence starters, all right? And then you need to share with somebody different every time. There's 4 of them, all right? Okay, so if you need to move around, that's good. Now, the whole point of these sentence starters is kind of like to dig deeper and get to know each other, because the only way for us to create a more inclusive community is by developing relationships. You know, there's not enough programming or policies that we can write. At the end of the day, it's community building. That's how we get to know people. So, here we go. As your sentence starter, pick a partner, and then complete the sentence. It's a quick one. You ready? All right. Now you need to talk to a different person. Okay. Number 2. You may think that I fill in the blank. Different person. Different person.
I know it is.
All right, we ready? All right, different corner again. Number 3, you probably don't know that I go. All right, let's wrap up those last thoughts. Okay, find a new partner. This is the last one. You probably couldn't guess that I...
Wrong answer.
So all yours are
That's cool. I would have. Is that your cardio?
It's hard.
No. Like currently you do that?
just follow these. Okay, alright, I'm gonna do something that's
Hey, how you doing? I got all
We gotta post the recipe. But if it's very good, like there you go. All right, let's go back to the table. Let's go back to the table. All right, so simple, it connects people, people laugh, emotional brain gets activated. Feel free to steal this activity for your parent activities, for conversations, for your parties at home. I mean, it really is very simple. and it opens up, conversations that we don't usually have, right? Like I was sharing with my partner that I'm a very good baker, so you couldn't really guess that I'm a very good baker, so.
I've seen your Instagram posts.
Oh my God,
Wow.
Yeah, that's true.
Wow.
All right, so here we go. As I said before, it's going to be a little bit of presentation as well as conversation. This was not in the email that every community member received. So this is kind of like going a little bit further, right? For you to know where we're at. So in 2021, 2022, when they were looking for the director for the office, the strategic plan of the school had already identified diversity, equity, and inclusion tactics. Because the school said, we really want to create a more inclusive and equitable community, right? And it was also in response to the letter that the Alon sent, after the national reckoning, social reckoning around, injustice. So then the DI director national search started, and then they did a very thorough process. People don't usually know this, but they interviewed a bunch of people, like a lot of people. And I actually came in like at the end of the process, they found me. So, and then also in 2021, 2022, we got the board approved diversity statements, and I think we're ready now. Tara, can you help me with this? And then the philosophy for curriculum and programming. Tara's going to give you some material that is published on the website, but that you also received.
Well done, well done.
That was not on purpose. It was just, not because you were coming. That's actually the official cover of the document.
This is Penny, this is Penny.
So if you look at this document, on page 2, you have the statement on diversity, equity, and inclusion, board approved, is one paragraph, and then below that, we have the statement of DI philosophy for curriculum and programming. Something that is important to remember about those two pieces that are board approved is that they are the philosophy behind the work. It's not that we're doing this on a regular basis in the classroom. It's the philosophy of what we want to do, what we want to achieve, so that the kids graduate from Porter-Gaud with a strong foundation of being inclusive citizens, if that makes sense, right? Okay, so 22-23, we rebranded diversity, equity, and inclusion. And I explained that before. There's two reasons for that. We rebranded it because the work that schools, particularly secular schools, are doing around diversity, equity, and inclusion work doesn't come necessarily from academia, it's coming from the business case for diversity. Right? And then we were like, that's not what we're going to be doing here at Porter-Gaud, and we're not going to take on an anti approach, right? When you think about all of the work that I do, and I'm not criticizing their work, I'm just stating that the work is anti-bias, anti-racism, white privilege, anti-everything. So it starts from a deficit thinking approach, and that's not what we're doing. Right? That we're not coming, or we're looking at people as there's a problem with you that you need to fix. Right? Well, anyway, right? What we're saying is no, diversity is a good thing, and as an Episcopal school, we want to make sure that everyone feels loved. And that's our starting point. So it starts from an asset-based approach. So we rebranded the office, and then we wrote the terminology that we're going to look at it in a minute. And then also, this is very, very, very important. The board approved the new Episcopal identity document that hasn't been shared. It will come eventually, in the same way I shared all of my stuff a few weeks ago. The Episcopal identity document will be shared. And in the Episcopal identity document, it establishes that the Office of Communication and Belonging flows from this Episcopal identity. Right? So, the reason for that, there's a very strategic reason for that, is that if I were to leave, if Father Kennedy were to leave, if DuBose were to leave, if we completely changed the board, whomever came after all of us, they would have to go through the board to make any changes. Does that make sense? So it was a way to protect where this work lives, right? And then we started the Communication and Belonging Competencies Project that we're going to talk about today in a minute. And then we redefine wellness for the institution. That also follows the work of the CED office. So 23-24, this is this year. Number one, this was a few weeks ago. We shared the foundations of communication and belonging with everybody. I also did a presentation for the alumni board so they could get you access to the information. We are using the CED competencies in spaces of direct instruction. What does that mean? It means that the intercultural learning lessons that Tara does in the lower school, she uses the competencies to frame the teaching and learning of that space. In the middle school, that lives in Life 101. We visit Life 101 throughout the year, and we also participate in different programs, and we use the competencies, as well as winterim. We're piloting the competencies with a few of the winterim options. And then in the upper school, we do it in the Ninth Grade Experience program. We also visit throughout the year the lessons that they get to face high school, and then some advisory lessons. Also, we're in the process of continuing to develop new policies programs for students and adults, and then we are in the process of designing a wellness strategy for the institution. We're not going to talk too much about the wellness strategy today because it's not the focus, but that is also happening. And then when we look at 24-25, which would be our next cycle, now that we have the strong foundation, it's going to be a lot easier for us to have a proactive response to national trends and to face adaptive challenges. For example, let me mention an adaptive challenge. The current conflict that is taking place right now in Israel is a challenge that is what we call an adaptive challenge. We didn't know what was going to happen, but then we have to face it, right? Like, what does that mean for the institution? How do we talk about it? How are the families feeling? You know, we don't have any Palestinian family right now at the school. We have mostly Jewish families, right? So the way we're approaching that work is very different. Some of the schools, I just came back from my conference, Indian families and Jewish families. So the way this is unfolding in those schools is very different to the way it is unfolding here, right? So that's part of the work I get to do on a regular basis. But that's kind of like the overall picture of everything that has happened. Now, the good thing that we need to be proud of is that in a year and a half, the Office of Communication and Belonging was able to build all of the foundational documents to say, this is what we do, this is how we do it, this is what we mean, and now we can go from here, and we could probably share with everybody, okay? So, this is, you've seen this before maybe, I presented it before, but this is the way the work works at the institution. This is not my agenda, this is not Dr. This is not Ms. Burke's agenda. This is the way it works. We have a core office, and all of these folks over here are part of the office. So a couple of you are actually members of board committees that are part of the office. So in this particular case, we have Kim, who's a member of the Wellness Committee and the CED Committee, and then Kathleen is a member of this committee. So you see there, the Board of Trustees, CED and Wellness Subcommittees are part of the office. So we work directly with board members as we strategize around the Dean of Wellness, Communications, the Associate Director, etc. Now, the support system for the office is all of these folks over here, and look, there's you. Right? So you are part of it, because I'm a big believer that we cannot educate kids and take care of kids if we're not in partnership with all of the stakeholders that have a presence in the life of kids, right? So it's not just what the parents do, what the kids do, what the teachers do. It's like all of us together because we want the best for the students, right? So this is the support system, and then all of us, the core office and the support system, we're trying to reach everybody else, right? So that would be like the community at large. All right. So, this is the reason why I was convinced to take this job, right? Because we were able to do this. This is not the standard. This is not the way it works in most schools around the country, right? So we said that we were going to take an ambidextrous approach, so an organizational theory, that means that you take care of the everyday, while at the same time you explore innovation, right? So we take care of the everyday in the office, and our innovation is, number one, to align the Episcopal identity, the mission, vision, values, with strong academics, right? So that happening through academics, and at the same time, the CDP. If you look at this, and this is a representation of the world, we offer the foundation and the stable foundation to prepare the kids for a world that is unknown, complex, and we also added the word broken. And that's where the Episcopal identity comes into place, right? Like, we know the world is that we need spirituality, we need faith, right? So that's unique. Now, the biggest piece that is unique here is that we're doing community engagement and belonging, former DEI, with a strong Christian and academic lens, right? And that is not something we walk away from, it's not something we should be ashamed of, on the contrary, it's something that we can openly say. No, we do this work with a Christian lens, right? Because it flows from the Episcopal identity of the institution, and that's what makes it unique, right? It also makes it challenging because out there is not done with a faith-based approach. Because it's not done with a faith-based approach out there, there's a lot of skeptics who are thinking, no, Dr. Sepulveda has a hearing, like he's gonna do all these crazy things at the school, and I'm like, that's not. And I committed to transparency, right? So that's the approach. So this is what we're gonna do. So now's where you participate. The rest of the time we have together, we're going to do this. I want you to see, to think, then to connect to you, and then to us. Alright? So for the first one, if you maybe watched it some time ago, we're going to watch our video once again. Right? So here's the instruction for you. Look closely. I didn't write the video. There's a difference, right? Remember that we do this work with strong academics. So to look closely, right? That is a capacity, right? That we want to develop with the kids as well. You need to notice things, make lots of observations, like watch with intention, right? So that's our first step, okay? Have you seen the video before that was sent? If you have not, this is going to be your first step. Okay, we're going to watch it again. Here we go.
Reverend Dr. Anthony Toomer Porter founded Porter-Gaud as an Episcopal school in 1867 to educate Charleston's impoverished and unschooled children in the Civil War. While much has changed over the last 150 years, the Episcopal identity of the school has remained. What does this identity mean for our community in the 21st century? Christian communities and organizations are founded that God is revealed in the person of Jesus Christ, and that each human being made in God's image has an immeasurable and irreplaceable worth as a recipient of God's unconditional love. For example, Christian hospitals and charities seek to be hands and feet of Christ, offering God's love to the suffering, the vulnerable, and those in need. Christian churches minister to their local communities and the world, extending grace to all people, seeking to make disciples, and pursuing justice and mercy. The primary role of a Christian school is to educate. Some Christian schools are direct extensions of local churches. Some schools choose to partner only with Christian families. Some are ministries of a diocese or a particular denomination. Some, like Porter-Gaud, are fully independent. As an Episcopal school, we are a Christian community that values diversity and intentionally seeks to serve and educate people of all faiths and backgrounds. In alignment with the National Association of Episcopal Schools, our Episcopal identity is expressed through worship services, community life, religious formation, and social justice. To inspire lives of purpose, learning, and service, each student's God-given potential. Our commitment to this mission shapes our school culture. It informs how we live out our values expressed in the Watch Prayer: to be truthful and kind, to be gracious and honorable, to be unselfish and charitable, to be noble, upright, and virtuous. One of the clearest expressions of our Episcopal identity and mission is the Office of Community Engagement and Belonging. Community engagement is defined as the process of identifying and addressing issues affecting the well-being of all members of the community, as well as celebrating the joy of coming together as one. Belonging is an outcome, and it implies a feeling of security, appreciation, support, fair treatment, and acceptance as a beloved member of the community. In alignment with the school's mission, vision, values, and strategic plan, the Board of Trustees has approved and adopted CED terminology, a diversity, equity, and inclusion statement, and a DEI philosophy for curriculum and programming. Overall, the office seeks to develop attitudes, skills, and knowledge outlined in the CED competencies for grades 1 through 12, which have 4 domains: embracing identity, valuing diversity, striving for fairness, equity, and justice, and moving to action. Porter-Gaud has a rich history of academic excellence, intentionally integrating faith and reason. We nurture an environment where our students are discerning thinkers, engaged learners, globally oriented citizens, empathetic collaborators, thoughtful communicators, ethical decision makers, resilient individuals, and flexible problem solvers. Identity, along with the community engagement and belonging strategy and vision of a learner, represent the heart and soul of the institution and integrate all aspects of learning, the emotional, spiritual, cognitive, and physical. Our pursuit of holistic wellness helps to foster lifelong habits to serve the culture and the world, a world that is complex and unknown, and one that our students are equipped to navigate and transform.
All right. I have no idea how these 4 minutes to so many hours of work.
I saw that and I thought, oh my stars, how much time that was.
All right, so let's move to the thing, and this is back to the table. What thoughts, insights, questions do you have about the information in the video? So I'm going to give you a few minutes to talk about it, and then we're going to shut up, okay?
Foundation is, and everything goes from that. So that was like a start. And I got chills just thinking, this type of work, I'm trying to do natural and try to make culture changes, but this is everything in the right direction. So that was like a start. But yeah.
Sorry. That and it is that even though it's black and white, you can still tell the diversity when it comes up. We're a girl and a chair. You can see how they're a band, it's yoga, and they're going through the religions. You can see somebody dressed up.
That's what I saw, and sometimes they purposely left out any color in it.
You really have to pay attention.
All you have to do is understand what context means, and you can already assume, but we don't have to say it, it's just there. Because we are all just right here,
I like how all the religions are still represented.
Yeah.
Like, for instance, they can always think about First St. Monica. And my daughter thinks Dragos knows how to play and everything. So I love
That's like too.
yeah, it's so fun. I mean, she ate all the chocolate the first day. It was so fun.
That was important for us, even if we were at a school that promoted spirituality, or was a religious school, that it was a
the goodness of the individual. And they're growing there in the students' goodness, their faith, and their walk. And our hope and prayer is in living in goodness, it will lead you to doing successful, productive things to impact our world. We as Christians say it's connected to our faith, our belief, and our connection with God. And it all takes the kids when it gives them that growth opportunity to say, I found this on my own. What does Jesus do? I found it on my own path, in my own faith, in my own walk. So it's letting them grow in that in an educational setting, which is like unique beyond belief. Like this is a project that it's super unique. And I would say, having talked about these things, and it's in South Carolina, it says a lot about the work that's being done here that touches the heart and the core. Like, even us when we're like, I'm standing there. And here, my son is like doing all kinds of things. And they're like, because we gotta admit it, the reputation. I can say that because I'm from here. Yeah, right. Yeah, I'm from here. I can say that. So, but look at all this good work. I mean, it's shifting the culture.
Shifting the culture.
Yeah.
And also, when you look at the history of an institution, or the history of the community or state, but specifically the history of an institution, in this case, our older son, that was 10 years ago.
Yeah, I was gonna say.
The cultural shift in just that time.
See?
Is another perspective.
I was thinking the same thing as an alumni. That was one of my observations, of myself when I was watching. When the video started, I was like, oh God, how's this gonna go? It better not be general and simple, you know what I mean? And obligatory because we need to do this. It was, the whole time I watched it, I was like, this is so intentional. There was not anything that was vague. I felt like the school was confident in it. You know what I mean? I felt confident, yes. And every and there might be a moment in the video where I was like, but what about it answered that? Like I did not walk away from this video thinking that we left anything on the table with how we feel, how we think, how we advocate. Yes, I thought every single moment was so intentional and confident. And I do think, I am. And I do think that that's something that you, and right, and I really was, because I do think that that's something that we've, as it said, we have been in a Episcopal school all these years, but would never have, that the intentionality of us and us knowing where we are and what we are, I'm not sure was in the past, and that was clear.
It's hard to do that.
Yes, to do the work where you had to show that video.
With a strategic plan and to implement it with action.
Yeah.
I was just thinking about how we do this in the business that I'm in, and this takes years to be able to formulate and then articulate.
Yeah.
So when you see this all in a very concise 4-minute video,
Yeah.
that means there's purpose and it's concise and this is what it means, and there's
Totally.
no wavering of that.
Because the work was
So,
done, you're right.
It's very impressive. We came from a public school 2 years ago, and it makes me sad that public schools won't even admit to the problems that they're experiencing. And then it has to
They don't have
happen.
the capacity to deal to address them.
They do. They choose.
Okay.
That's my opinion. Yeah.
All right, let me bring you together. This is fabulous. I love this. This is good feedback. Is there any question that I can help you better understand anything in the video or any lingering question that you may have?
You can see, I think you touched on this, the timeline, like this is the first that Peter's seeing this video.
Yeah.
Seeing the video, I first saw it in the email link,
Yes.
got this meeting. What is the community rollout? Like in terms of-
So internally, everybody is 100% aware. We've communicated.
When you say internally, do you mean like
Faculty, staff, and then administrators, the board, but internally is fully on board. So now we just started the process of communicating this to the larger community. So the first approach was that email that was to everybody. But in today's world it's so hard because how do you make sure that people are actually accessing the information? So the process continues, by saying, this is what we have, this is what we do, it's all available on the website. So even if somebody didn't, check or whatever, they can look up. All of this is on the website. New families, if they're, perusing our website, they can find all of it, and that is, I took to heart the feedback I received from many parents that started to meet with me when I arrived, and they were like, we don't know what's going on. And I'm like, I'm committing to transparency. Like, you also need to know what we're doing so we can partner and collaborate, and also to kind of take care of those myths around this work, here, because they might not be myths out there, The same with the competencies, right? So when I have a parent that comes and says, why are you teaching this in first grade? I'm like, we're not, right? But then before we have the competencies, we could only say, please trust us that we're not. Now I can show you and say, this is what we're doing, and if a teacher is not doing it, that teacher's needs align with the work that is coming directly from the board all the way down. So, but we do need to expand it more and get more parents to be aware of the work that we're doing. So, and that's what we need groups like DIPA or the PGPA, etc., to help us with this. So.
They don't want to be behind children when the children are already being
Right.
educated in their, relative to their age group. Just like with new math, parents need to catch up, or they're gonna get left behind.
Yeah.
And if you don't want to get left behind, and your children are becoming more free thinkers, you need to jump on in. So yeah.
My question and wonder throughout, and I think I know the answer, but I'm a Christian, I'm a believer, and I wonder and want to make sure that our folks here that are not, right, associated with religion, faith, or whatever, really see that video and believe that we are inclusive and that they do belong here at the school, right? Their family, their children, etc. And so that is always my question. While I would love, while I would love for everybody to be a Christian and believer, because that's not but I want to make sure that folks really do feel like they belong here, regardless, like I said, our non-Jewish families, Muslim families, and that they feel safe and that they belong. And I do think that the video portrays that, but it is, we are a physical school. Yeah, I want to, so I think, I know there were feedback from, a lot of people. So anyway, that is always a question and a wonder and a thought of mine in this process. But you were going to say something to that.
The B and C is what's critical, because a lot of organizations, whether it's schools, companies, or otherwise, have community engagement committees or community engagement this or that. That the community, everyone attached to the school, whether it's a student or a faculty member, they absolutely belong here.
And I think that organizational structure, you're so right, it maps that out.
That's right. The core and the,
Yes, to make sure everybody has a seat at the table. And again, I go back to the foundation is understanding, highlighting the goodness in people. And for some people, you can admit, even if you take something off the table, which I think you're saying, we do want that for everyone, but you have to feel comfortable knowing that this school promotes goodness in people. And so if you come with an approach that is not of a goodness impact, it will feel awkward. And we can talk about that now because we see college presidents who are on the hot block now for not being able to articulate these comments do not promote goodness in people. And they were not able to say that when it was asked of them. And it's unfortunate, but this is what Porter-Gaud is saying. We're not questioning your religious affiliation, but what we are working on with all children is making sure this is a comfortable environment for them to grow in goodness, in a culture in goodness.
I
Can-
had a piece into that.
Yeah.
Previous, I think we're talking about adaptive.
Yeah, challenges.
Challenges.
So.
You know, the way I explain to kids when that question has come up is, listen, you know, the key word here is identity, right? So when I explain to kids, I say, let's say I invite you to my house, right? Please come. I want you to come to my house. I want you to feel welcome. I want you to feel included. And the walls in my house are blue. And then you come in and then you say, oh, but I don't like blue walls. I want green walls. Then I would say, I'm so sorry, but the walls are blue. I still want you to be a part of my house. Please come, eat with me, let's celebrate. But we're not changing the walls, right? So when you hear certain people who may feel uncomfortable because of the Christian environment, it's the blue walls, right? And we're not going to change the blue walls because from the beginning I told you, and you noticed that our walls were blue. You know, so I think that that is distinctive, you know, and that's the problem that public education has. That's why they erase religion in general from the space. Because they have that issue, oh yeah, because the identity of the school is the school. And we don't apologize for it. Now, we do have to make sure that we also acknowledge, and Father Kennedy does a fabulous job doing that. We also acknowledge the other folks who may not be Christian who also participate in the community. But we don't apologize for being Christian. You know, and I think that that clarity is needed for the current families as well as the incoming families. You know?
Just saying, so I have a first grader, and we are Christians, we're Orthodox.
Right.
And that was one of my main concerns is how is this being taught to my child?
Right.
And why we didn't do, other Christian or other faith schools. So I think there's maybe a misconception in the community. So most importantly is that, and also, the second part is coming to an independent school, there's not a lot of diversity in general.
Yeah.
So that's a concern, and how do you portray to the public that we want you here?
Yeah.
You belong,
That-
Please
that's-
come
that's-
here, we will treat you.
That's the work in the office, right? Like, that's what we're doing.
Well,
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
our family is not religious, and I think the challenge is, what Shano is saying is what resonates with me, is that there are many paths to leading, a purposeful, service-driven, good, filled life.
Yeah.
And this is one of them, and this is, the faith-based path is not the path our family takes, and as long as the school is like, all good, you're still a good person, you still belong here, and, what you have to give is still important. We're doing it, we have this belief, and you have another belief, and you're still a good, person who's like contributing to this community.
Yeah.
And is welcome and belongs here, and we're not thinking you're bad. We're not trying to convert you, which is what you're saying. And, you're still going to be learning this. I'm saying, like, if this was a new school, I'm still saying, okay, well, the academics are great, and I guess I love athletics and all the other things here, and they're happy here for those reasons, and we're not going to be Buddhist when we leave, but they're still teaching like love and goodness.
And that's why we are trying to say, like, these are different kinds of Christian institutions. We're fully independent.
I love that.
Like, we're fully
That was the
independent.
question I had.
And we invite everybody.
I was like,
But it takes a minute to get there.
Yeah.
Because if you're not open to listening to the whole thing, you could be turned off from the beginning. And then again, and I was kind of the same way, I mean, I saw it, a little bit along the way, but then I was like, and boom.
Yes, and
There
to
it
me,
is.
that helped, as somebody who's got, maybe, on a flip side of that, like my dad is an alum, I'd like for him to see that. We are not, this is not going to be, Porter is not going to teach like your church.
Right.
It's not. And it's also not gonna be who it is. It held both of those for me.
A phrase that you would hear always from Father Kennedy and myself, when there's misunderstandings or expectations that we cannot fulfill, is we're not a church, we're a school. and our primary role is to educate. Right? And there's space for religion exploration, right? But our primary role is to educate.
One of the things I got from video and the slides, we were talking about the broken world, which I have to disagree with you, because I think the world, as a Christian, I think the world is a gift from God, but I do believe there's lots of broken people.
Yeah.
But I think that the start of the video talked about Reverend Porter at a time when our society was broken, around the Civil War, took in these boys, and they might have been Christian, they might have been Episcopal, they might have been whatever they were, but he took in these broken boys and educated them. And I think that we are still coming forward, although our mission is constantly evolved and changed, the purpose is still the same. We're taking in children who may or may not be broken, whether it is a broken family or whether they are suffering some sort of mental health issues or just kind of anxiety. Everybody is broken in some sense, but Porter-Gaud is taking everybody in and educating them and making them feel like they belong with the characteristics of being a Christian school.
Right. Yeah.
So I took that from the past, I still kind of the same.
Yeah, the mission still, has changed the wording, but it goes back to the same. All right, I'm going to move us along because I really want us to look at the competencies. So you have the diversity statement there, and I mentioned that before, the same with the philosophy. So the terminology, as a researcher, something that they train us to do when you're doing your, research training is you need to define the terms because people will interpret things in so many different ways, right? So you gotta define the terms, right? So these are the terms that we basically identified that we needed to define because they are interpreted in so many different ways, everywhere, right? So there's 8 of them, right? Community engagement, belonging, diversity, inclusion, equity, justice, dignity, social justice. Also, there's scripture, connected to each definition. However, the definition stands by itself without the scripture, right? So the scripture is just for anybody who would like to learn a little bit more. So I'm going to invite you to take a look at the definitions, maybe pick 1 or 2. And the question I want to give you is this. And maybe we could partner up. So because time is running out. To kind of talk about this. So how do you see your personal experiences or your values or your beliefs reflected in the definitions? All right?
Partner.
Yeah, let's partner up to.
Dignity is one that I think that's not a social worker. Part of the reason I became a social worker over even other counseling professions is because they talk about dignity. And they say a client comes to you and they tell you where they are, that we're there, and then you decide their goals based on what they say to you. And so it's very empowering and I feel so strongly about that. I love that the word talk about here because I bet there's a lot of DEI programs at other schools and they probably stop right about there. You know what I mean? They don't go on to me. And yet I would never express my faith in work social work capacity because it's not where you do it. Yes, but it's why I do what I do. And to me, I keep hearing that in my head when I read through it. It's why? Not what look forward, why we're grown together. That to me, that speaks to so much. My values, my beliefs of why I think my beliefs are so deeply into. Yeah. What about you?
tackle everything, they can look at the school and say what is preventing people from having that experience here at school. And, I like that.
I see you. And who you are, where you are, is exactly. Yeah, yes. Really Pre-game for them.
Right, but that is right. Right.
And the first 6 months of a new school.
And look for, right, the history of it not being that diversity school, not being committed.
Feels included.
Yes,
Yeah, oh, he's thinking, yes.
Seemingly, at least that's how it
Right.
is, that having that in writing, that, that's
Yes.
all of us.
Because he feels probably that's, which of course isn't much to you and your family, that he feels dignity and worth inside. But the fact that you're saying that you feel that in school is tremendous. I mean, that's to me, and again, the outcome of board. And I love that was one thing you're doing
Ninth grade too.
says that clearly. Yes. It can be so like, what are those two? I mean, how are they different? How are they different? And I think that, again, belonging has that, if you talk to somebody my dad's age, might get political terms, and he can understand belonging. My dad would want to be feeling, or his buddies, or would get the understanding and feeling. Like everyone can understand that term without this, if diversity becomes a hot red button, cannot not understand that. And if you understand that, you understand that. You know what I mean? You understand it. If everyone should feel like they belong, not everybody looks the same. So you can't, or comes from the same place. Yes. Yes, because they put the value of every person at the table. My dad, when he came here, full ride scholarship, his parents were not.
You can always have more
So
better.
his, with always in line.
Let's take a few seconds to wrap up your thoughts.
Not having police or not having police or not doing that kind of stuff. So he can feel that when you touch that part of him. He gets that. You know what I mean? Yes, exactly. That's where this all comes from. This is not about anything but that bigger you can be. I gotta see what it was. Truth be told, I have no hopes. It's not that I see this. I know, right? We are not indoctrinated.
All right, let's come back. Let's come back together. Good conversation, I hear. So we'll receive questions from somebody who's on live stream. So I'm going to address the question at the end, the two questions. So if you're looking at me right now, I will answer. So as you can see, these definitions, like by themselves, provide an educational tool, right? And we say like, this is what we need, right? And we can unpack that, and then people will still bring their own interpretation to the word. But now there's a standard, like this is what we mean by the word that we do, right? I want to move us along to the last section, which is the CV competencies. So the reason for the CV competencies project was number one, we wanted to make sure that the CV strategy was embedded in the academic work, right? Because that's what we're here to do. We're here to educate, number one, right? Number two, it's a scope and sequence so we can provide guidance for both parents so they know exactly what we're doing, as well as teachers, right? So, when I present this to the faculty members, if you have a question about, like, yeah, I would like to explore this unit, I would like to explore this topic, is it appropriate for me to explore this topic in second grade, or in seventh grade, or in 10th grade, etc., then you have the CV competencies to help you filter the unit design, the resources that you're picking for the classes, etc., 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 right? We even do it with the teachers, like we have rubrics for them to think about a unit, let's filter your unit with this. What are you adding? Is it possible that maybe you have a topic or a competence in itself that is way above what the kids should be exploring, right? So that's the reason number one. And then reason number two, we wanted to make sure that the work of the city office, again, was born from the Episcopal identity instead of specific social agendas. Right? And by that I mean is that in some of the places, with different approaches, they're like, okay, this is what we need to teach to the kids in first grade. So we're going to teach about racism from the beginning, right? And then the question is it appropriate? Is it age appropriate? Right? What are you causing? Are you creating more unity or are you creating more division? Right? Are the kids even ready to understand them? Right? So the kids are still learning how to tie their shoes. And then we're introducing, terminology that might be too hard for them to understand, right? So when we think about the competencies, and this is the same suggestion that the teachers receive. They are not standards, right? So it's not what the students should know in relation to assessment. They are not going to be assessed on this. Number two, they are not learning objectives. Right? We don't want them to do this by the end of the lesson because they are developed throughout life. Right? That's why we're also sharing this with parents, because we also want parents to help us with this. Right? And they are not content. So we don't have units on race or gender or socioeconomic status or religion. We don't have units on that. We're not teaching that. Those topics come up as the kids explore different units, for example, third grade, the Change Makers Project, those topics may come up, in those spaces. So we need to think of the competencies as ways of being, ways of doing, and ways of knowing, right? So there's 4 domains. Embracing identity, this is throughout, 1st to 12. Valuing diversity, moving to action, and striving for fairness, equity, and justice, right? So these 4 domains allocate different competencies per grade level. And some of them are repeated, right? Because again, you need to do it over time, right? So what you have in your document there is a list of all of them. Now, for the folks who are at home, if you go to the website, and then you click on Foundations of CV, you can get to the same document that we're using here in person right now. So, the last few minutes, we're going to talk about the we. Okay? So, I don't know how you want to do it. Maybe you want to partner up with somebody who's on the same grade level as you are, or you want to do it as a group, whatever. You pick, how you would like to talk about the we. But in what ways the CV competencies preparing our children for life within and outside the school? All right? So let's take 3 minutes to explore a little bit this work.
Okay, you're told Kathleen and I actually talked about it in our last segment.
Yeah, we did.
Because we said this work will allow our children as adults to sit at the table and work on things that we currently struggle with.
Yeah.
This is the work the foundational work. Our kids are now, it's a part of the curriculum here. It's a part of their daily life.
Yeah.
Walk. It's going to allow all types of people to sit at the table in boardrooms, on school boards, in executive rooms, to sit at the table and do the work and not be afraid that you're different from me.
Yeah. Thank you for saying that.
What did she
They are. I think a perfect example of that would be, we were talking about Hanukkah. Yeah. In the class, and my kids were talking about Hanukkah and you know, and then I have first grade next week. My kids had maybe and my kids had questions about it, and they were and what I loved about it is that they came home and talked to me about it. Like they were, and they were tough questions, you know. Why? Yes. Why do they not do that? Why do I think they were tough questions, and they were yes, right, exactly. And it was tough. It was, and it made the thing that I loved about it was because Porter doesn't shy away from teaching us. My daughter came home with those questions and would ask me it. I think I was 30 before I could have articulated, but my kids learning how to articulate just what you said, being coming to my house all the time. My heart was out for the way he said it was. I would love you know what I mean? You can wear anything you want. You can wear whatever you want. I'm going to be making a meal. So I have just a couple there. You know, and so I think please do. You can wear whatever you want. Please wear clothes. If you're not going to wear clothes, you can't come to my house in front of me. Wear what you want, but you have to watch some rules. Yes, I have some rules. I have some limitations in our school. Has some rules. Like you can't come to my school when you finish. You can't come to my school. You know, when you right in school. Oh wow, girl. Can you imagine if it was just say it. And you know what? They don't like to think. So you know what? They don't absolutely because they don't have the foundation. Right. They have to say free speech without this without also if that's your goal, then you're right. You can't say that. But you better be ready that they're going to say I hate this. I hate right. All day long. I hate Muslims. I hate all this and stand around and if that's the case, you're going to have kids that are going to be there and feel unsafe. Are you saying that that's the school you want to have, an unsafe school? You can't do both. And we are saying we're putting our foot in the ground. This might not be good. You know what? Like when he said that we are educators, this is why I love this. Because that's why they say I was doing the mission. They chose here. But they were leaving between here and Michigan. You know what Yes, exactly. It was Catholic. It's Catholic. And she told me that when she went to the admissions, they were in the admissions office. And this guy said, let me be clear. I am not preparing, we here are not preparing your child for college. We are preparing your child for their eternal salvation. Now that sounds awesome, fifth grade, but that is a church, right? That's what a church's role in my head. That's what my church does. It's preparing me for my kids for my salvation. This is a school. I want you to prepare my children for life. Right? Why are you doing it? Why are we doing it? We are not going to apologize for that. We're not going to lie to you and say we're not who we are. We'd be lying. You know? Right. But that's, I was like, that is what, if that was right. And they were like, why? And I can see why. So anyways, I felt like this is preparing my child for life. This is preparing not for their eternal salvation. That is my church's role, which I get to choose and gets to be very specific about how they teach it. Right? And it's work to do. And this is the work that is preparing to get outside of school. To be in a world
all right, so let's come back together. Let's come back together.
Yeah, I love that. I've got it. Yeah.
All right, so. All right, so I was kind of like eavesdropping your conversation. I I appreciate the time you're spending with this, and and I think a couple of you said it, like this provides language, that is age appropriate, so we also know. So again, it's another educational piece, like when parents ask like, when should I introduce this idea or this topic, etc., right? Like this is another way, for you based on research, right? Like kind of like what's appropriate and what's not, right? And how we're preparing the kids to actually go to college, and then for life in general, all right? So I want to address the questions that were asked before I show you a couple more resources before we finish. So one of the questions was around why we decided on the not having an anti-approach, right? So the latest research coming from 2020, more or less, shows that all of the depth thinking approach to diversity work is not causing the effect that is intended to have, right? So the intended effect is we want everybody to realize that, certain groups have been historically oppressed, etc., right? The problem is that the effect of having a negative approach towards diversity is that people build up their walls right away, right? And instead of engaging in more conversation, they're like, I don't want to talk about it, I don't want to say the wrong thing, why are we even talking about this, so, and then the folks who might have been enjoying okay relationships, now they feel exposed, and sometimes they are the only voice in the room, and it's really messy. So that's the reason why we took an asset-based approach. So we still talk about those who are most vulnerable, and we also look at the historical piece, especially in the curriculum. But then we do it with an asset-based approach, so that's the reason. And the second question was about diversity within diversity, and if we could do something about the Asian community, AAPI, and I'm like, yes, absolutely. We have a city calendar. Something we did this year is that we actually, for the very first time, we're going to do Lunar New Year this year in all 3 divisions. Also, we're going to do, as a lesson, the International Day of Holocaust Remembrance. That's going to happen now in January. And also, we're going to add Jewish Heritage Month that actually was declared official in Charleston last year. Julie Ellison, the Lower School head, and myself, we went to the declaration actually to the city council. The mayor was there. So we're adding those pieces too. So I think the parent, I think you got the email too. Kind of I wanted to help organize the festival. I would say yes, talk to DIPA folks, and we would welcome all kinds of support. Last thing I wanted to share is somebody asked about resources. So of course, the city office landing page, everything we talked about is there. But also, I wanted to suggest these 2 books. For folks at home, I have them here, so sorry you were not here, but you can look at them, pass them around. So these 2 books are absolutely fabulous. They are very simple, easy to understand, and it was written by Dr. Beth Sutter Wright. She is also in the Episcopal world. She's very well known, and she has this framework around dignity, and just her work is fantastic. Like for anybody who needs any kind of more education, or even just to understand a little bit more the Episcopal identity of our school, is very powerful. So I strongly suggest those 2 resources. So, having said that, that's all I've got for everybody today. Thank you for having me, and I'm going to pass it on to... You may want to use the microphone.
Yeah, so thank you. Great, thank you for those of you who are online. Thanks for those who came. Sorry we ran a little late, but I hope that this helps you kind of get a little bit more understanding of the work that's being done here, and be able to continue to support your kids at home. I know I learned a lot. So thanks again so much for coming, and can't wait for this year to see you guys. Thank you guys. Thank you.